Welcome to Body Kindness. I'm Rebecca Scritchfield, creator of the Body Kindness Philosophy book and audiobook. I'm here to help you create a better life by reinventing health from the body oppressive, shaming, and you'll never be enough type of mindset to positive and joyful ways that you can spiral up your energy, mood, and your well-being at any size, shape, or weight, and as you are right now. Get started for free at bodykindnessbook.com/start. That's the sound of me smashing a stack of scales in front of some friends. And I have to say that breaking up with the scale and all the other ways I was judging, monitoring, and measuring my worth was absolutely pivotal in my life. Creating the body kindness philosophy and letting myself be a human being again helped me become a better mom, a better clinician, and a happier and healthier person. I believe we all have a right to decide how we want to care for ourselves. And I think we all need support in figuring out what that looks like. You don't have to do this alone. There's a whole community of like-minded people who are fed up with diets, who are embracing intuitive eating, and who are completely redefining their lives from body shame to body kindness. You are not broken. Our culture is. Find your inner caregiver and create a better life with body kindness. As you've been going through your COVID-19 experience, how many times have you thought about healthcare workers and our essential workers and all the sacrifices people are making far and wide to help us all get through this crisis together? I know I have, and we all have a story to share, and hopefully this podcast episode will help you think of the compassion that you're experiencing through this crisis. And maybe our conversation is reminding you of something else that you've noticed. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your story. You can always email me, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com, and share. And of course, I'm going to email you back and I'm going to ask, hey, can I share this maybe? Because I would love to include some additional stories in the show notes for this episode. If you're a Body Kindness Insider, that's a free Facebook group. I would love for you to post in our conversation thread there with this episode. And this episode would not be possible if it were not for the love and kindness and compassion from three of my mentees, Lara Loverro, Katy, Gaston, and Shannon, Hughes. And I think that you're going to see from hearing us talk that we all know each other. We're comfortable with each other. And yet we are representing kind of different areas of the COVID-19 trauma. Lara, you probably remember her from a couple episodes ago when she was sharing coping through anxiety and shared her own personal anxieties as a mother and as a daughter. And that her mom is COVID-19 positive and is in the hospital on a ventilator. And she has an update. There's a lot of positive and hopefulness to her update and still a lot of uncertainty. But she had this idea that she really wanted to share with others the level of compassion and kindness that she is experiencing from fellow humans. And when we got to talking about healthcare workers in particular, we thought that we knew some wonderful women who were in it and invited them to show up, and they said yes. And I'm so grateful to Shannon Hughes and Katy Gaston for coming in and sharing their personal lives and how they're coping and just being honest. I really think everyone will get something out of this conversation. We talk about the definition of compassion, meaning to suffer together. Lara's urge to feel like that she needs to give back rather than be a receiver right now, and how it's okay to have permission to receive this love and kindness from others, and really how everything we're going through is challenging us to reframe our values and how and why we practice body kindness, and how this is really helping us to get through and build resilience and grow personally. So please visit the show notes to get full bios and information from the guests today. All three are Body Kindness mentees of mine. Lara Loverro is a certified health coach and intuitive eating counselor. Shannon Hughes is a physician assistant and a registered dietitian in a clinical setting in infectious diseases with pediatrics. And Katy Gaston is a dietitian, and she's a clinical dietitian, and she works in a long-term acute care hospital in San Francisco, and she specializes in respiratory conditions. So you'll get to hear more about their story, their experiences, how they've been surviving on a day-to-day basis. Shannon is also a mom, so we commiserate on our poetry assignments, and so much more from this conversation. Thank you so much for listening. And once again, if something in this episode inspired you, please share it. Please rate and review it. Please email me if you want to share your story. I would love to build off of these stories of hope and comfort and peace, and continue this goodness going. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, Lara, welcome back to Body Kindness.
Thank you for having me back.
So first I want to say you have set the world record of fastest repeat guest. Congratulations. I don't know if that was in your personal career goals, but you managed to do it. So congrats.
Well, thank you. No, it was not in my personal career goals, but thank you for having me back.
Well, there's a really good, really important reason, and I'm really excited to share these updates with the listeners. But, I'm sure everyone who's been listening has been tuning in to the COVID episodes, and you were on talking about coping with anxiety, and we're at a really pivotal point with your mom who tested COVID positive and had been in the hospital and on a ventilator for like weeks and weeks of agony and uncertainty and not being able to talk to her. And really, I feel like when we hit record, it happened to be where you were at this rock bottom moment of needing to be an anchor for your family and a connector for your family. And you were sharing your just honesty for what life was like in your house and loving your mom, but you couldn't hold her hand. And we put together a show to try to be helpful for people who felt any amount of anxiety and uncertainty and pain. And I'm so grateful for that conversation. And literally that show was airing. And the next thing you know, I'm looking and you put out this Facebook post that just I was like, okay, who's cutting onions? Pass me the tissues. And it was like drama unfolding. And I want you to, it's basically what led to this theme in this conversation. So I think it was definitely worthy getting back on and talking again. And so I would love for you to share, why are you back? What happened? What did you do? And what do you want to talk about today?
Okay. So again, I'm going to get emotional, and lots of people who have told me that they have listened to the past podcast that they were so appreciative and it was so informative, but it was painful for them to hear the upsetment in my voice.
Mm.
So I'm trying not to, but it's still extremely emotional for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it always will be. But I did want to share that my mom was in ICU on a ventilator for 19 days. And then miraculously, they took her off, and we had a call. It was actually on Easter Sunday, and that they took her off. I was blown away. And then that night, they were saying that she needed this BiPAP machine. Our understanding was that she needed some machine, and all of a sudden, my siblings and I were desperate to find her this machine so that she wouldn't have to go back on a ventilator and be sedated again.
Okay, so can I just be clear? She needed her nurse, her caregiver, her hospital care team called you and said she needs a machine that we don't have in the hospital?
That was our understanding.
Okay.
Right? They were like, we're trying to find her. She needs a BiPAP machine. We can't put her on a normal BiPAP machine. because it will aerosol the virus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other thing you need to remember is the healthcare workers are, frantically trying to take care of people. So the information that we were getting was here, there, and everywhere, right? So you get a quick call from a doctor, a PA, a nurse, and you try to understand what they're saying to you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But our understanding was like, oh my God, they're going to ventilate her again, right? They're going to intubate her again. And like, we needed to do everything we could. Now, we did know that there was a gentleman at my mom's hospital who figured out how to turn BiPAP machines into ventilators. Now, my understanding, after we learned a little bit more, was he was doing that in order to create ventilators, right? And that what my mom actually needed was just a BiPAP machine with a hood. And the hospital was able to secure her one of those. But in our desperate plea, thinking she was going to have to be intubated again, and we just wanted to do everything to not have that happen and get all the information, I sent out a message on Instagram and Facebook, which I got like the community support of everyone trying to help me connect and help my mom. It was unbelievable.
So was that your idea? Like I don't know who to ask, but I have these social handles, so I'll just put a message out there and cross my fingers, or
I just need to do something to help my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, I have lots of friends. I've got a huge community, and I've got a connection that even goes broader than just my town community, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a desperate plea for help.
Mm-hmm. Can you say a little bit more? Like, I don't know if you have that post in front of you, but I remember reading it, but like it was pretty long, and you went into specifics about what she needed and even asking for specific doctors' names. Like, I'm looking to find these doctors.
Yes, we were looking to find two specific doctors that actually had turned BiPAP machines into ventilators for fear that New York State was running out of ventilators.
Right. And
somehow it was like amazing. I remember I was like frantically like people unbelievably started, just the texts that poured in, the emails that were pouring in, the comments, and everyone calls. Like my phone people were just calling me saying, well, I know this person, I know that person. And I remember my husband ran into the room. He was like, oh my God, Lara, like there's a woman who you're friends with on Facebook who knows the doctor's wife, and she's going to connect you with the wife. And she did. And the wife is a social worker. And she was like, oh my God, whatever you need, I will connect you with my husband. And her husband took the time to explain to me that my mom actually did not need the BiPAP machine that was turned into a ventilator. She needed the BiPAP machine with a hood. And we also, another friend of mine from my community did connect me with the chairman of the hospital. Now, you have to remember, it was Easter Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And these healthcare workers have been working around the clock. This gentleman took my phone call, took my girlfriend's phone call, took my phone call, needed to talk to my brother because my brother's her healthcare proxy, spoke to my brother, then called the head of ICU for us. Mm-hmm. And got a full-blown understanding of what my mom's situation was and where she was at, and then called me and my brother and like had a three-way conversation and sat on the phone with us. I remember being on the floor in my living room, and he sat there for 20 minutes talking to us and fully explaining my mom's situation and what she needed and where she was going, and then said to us, look, you need to understand something. Like, it's Easter Sunday. Go enjoy your Easter Sunday. Like, your mom is very blessed. You guys are very blessed. And just keep the spirit up. And at that same time, he did tell us, you also need to understand, as healthcare providers, we don't know a lot about this virus. We're doing the best we can. But there's a lot of unknown out there. And everyone's just doing the best they can. And since then, okay, then I need to tell you this because it was incredible. There was that night when they went to put the BiPAP machine in the hood back on my mom, right? Because she sleeps with it. A nurse called from her private phone and my brother and said to my brother, your mom seems like she's getting very anxious and she's really scared. So it was the first time after 20 days that we had any connection with her. And this nurse said, like, I don't want to have to sedate her again because she needs to get stronger. And if we sedate her, her muscles aren't going to get strong. So I'm hoping by hearing your voice, we won't have to sedate her again and it will calm her. And my mom still can't speak. She still can't write, but my brother was able to speak with her and calm her. And since that initial conversation, my mom, unbelievably, miraculously, just keeps improving a tiny bit each day. And it really is a miracle. And these healthcare workers, when they have the time, they will FaceTime, or one of them took a short video. She's not even a nurse. She's just a receptionist on the floor. And she said, Bonnie, come, like, I'm going to send these to your kids. Like, let me see that thumbs up. And you see my mom trying to give a thumbs up and they send it to us. Mm-hmm. And it's just very, if nothing else, because we can't be with her, we can't visit with her, she can't talk to us. At least we know she's hearing our voice. And I'm just thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. I know when you sent me a little clip of your brother talking to her, I mean, I was like, time. I lost it. It was it was like that, gosh, a million emotions, right? But that like joyful and despair, right? You know, because this is amazing. I'm witnessing something amazing. And gosh, the healing can't come quick enough, you know, and
right.
And I definitely I just felt a sense of peace for you and your family in that, and just watching the power of the human spirit and what it means, what does it mean to be human, right? That we're born to help, and to connect and to be there for each other when it really matters. And when you think of that chain between feeling alone and desperate to that decision to make a post, to all the efforts and giving you the empathy that you needed and the love and support that you needed for your spiral ups. And I remember when I saw it and I was reading on the thread and it was like, hey, I'm so-and-so's wife. I was like, I was watching a movie and it was that part, you know, that take your breath away. And then this sense of relief of like, okay. And so it's about the next step and it's about the next day and the next milestone. And yeah, it really is. I know when things were changing so quickly. And when we started to talk about that roller coaster that you were on, you were like, you said to me, you're like, I just can't believe people are doing this. And I don't know why they're doing this. Like that there was something wasn't clicking, I think, in your mind, like some sort of disbelief that you had that what was happening was actually happening and that people would be moved to help and support and show care and kindness and connection and do everything they could to help, in some ways friends, in some ways acquaintances, in some ways total strangers.
Mm-hmm. True. And my profession is helping people, right? But this is a whole nother level of humanity that I am seeing. And whether it's just friends, people in my community, people in my larger community, doctors, nurses, receptionists at the hospital, doesn't matter who it is, you, right? Mm-hmm. You spend so much time with me. It's like I don't know how to show my appreciation. It's like I don't know how.
Well,
show everyone my thanks, right? It's like amazing. Like I could never possibly.
I think that, it's interesting. It sounds like you have this urge for reciprocity right now when really what you need to be doing is receiving
Right.
the gifts, and just keep those arms open and that heart open and keep receiving. Besides hearing that amazing story that is still in progress, right? Things unfold every day. How's your mom today right now?
She, it's hard. They're
Mm-hmm.
not giving us like, like she's gonna be all right.
Mm-hmm.
But every day,
Mm-hmm.
she seems like she takes a step forward. Meaning, one day they FaceTime me, and my brother's connection and communication with her was, "Mom, if you can hear me, can you blink your eyes?"
Mm-hmm.
And so the first time I've got to FaceTime with her twice so far. First time I was able to FaceTime with her, I was trying to do that, right? And I think my mom was like, "Oh my God, I'm so tired of blinking my eyes." And the nurse is like, "Oh my God, she's trying to wave to you." Right? So anytime I asked her a question, she's like, "All right, I'm so tired." And I know my mom, she's a fighter. She's like, she's got oomph in her, right? Like, and she's like, "I'm tired of blinking my eyes. I'm going to wave at you." And she was trying to wave. And then, like, another day, now she's trying to give thumbs up. They were able to get her with a machine up and into a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And they have started some like light physical therapy and occupational therapy. But when she does that, she fatigues a lot. She definitely has a long road of recovery. I don't even think about this,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't even know when. There's no talk about seeing her.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that she was trying to speak a little bit, and she was asking the nurse to. The nurse thought she was asking for water and ice chips. The nurse said to her, "We're going to get you paper and pen." And my sister's idea is like, "Oh, let's get her some whiteboard because it's probably a little bit better."
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think she's strong enough yet to even like
Mm-hmm.
write in order to communicate with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like I was saying earlier, I was so, what really did it for me in watching kind of, I guess, round two unfold was your like, almost like your disbelief in, if I had to articulate what your mind might be saying, is like, why are these people who might not even know me taking these actions to help me? Like, who am I to deserve this? Or like how you say, like, I just don't know how I could ever thank people. And that led to this idea of actually discussing, what does it mean to have compassion through crisis, and that to have an opportunity to represent a real experience like yours, but then also talk to people who are healthcare workers. And we are so lucky to have two healthcare workers with us on the chat today. So we have both Shannon and Katy. I want to welcome you guys to Body Kindness. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah. I guess the first question wait a minute. I said, here's my edits for myself. First, we need to make sure listeners know a little bit about who you are and what you do and what you're doing in COVID-19, like during the pandemic. So let's start there. Shannon, why don't you go first?
Okay, so I kind of wear two hats right now in my world. I am a registered dietitian, and then I'm also a physician assistant. So my current kind of, if you will, day job is a physician assistant. I actually work in pediatrics at a children's hospital, and my specialty happens to be infectious diseases. So I also, following my passion, I was an RD before I was a PA, and I've kept that. And so I also kind of have my own side business where I do, as a dietitian, where I do coaching, weight inclusive wellness, and work, with people through body kindness. I'm actually one of Rebecca's mentees. She's my mentor, and have gone through her mentorship now a couple of times because I'm learning so much about that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with everything. But my focus over the last probably 6 weeks has really taken my dietitian stuff has taken sort of a backseat because of COVID and ramping up with everything at my PA job and at work, especially, with having to deal with all of the situations going on. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks. And what about you, Katy?
I am a clinical dietitian and I work at a LTAC or long-term acute care. So it's kind of an interesting level of care, but I basically summarize it as anyone that can't, graduate, quote unquote, from the ICU, they come to us. So it's kind of a higher level of care, but long-term. So we really specialize in ventilator weaning, respiratory failure, these kinds of things. And so during this COVID-19 time period, we have been a level of care that has not had to have kind of a surge. I am living in California and San Francisco. And so it seems to be they've put plans in place to kind of have the surge, be the best case scenario in terms of trying to prepare and get everyone prepared and ready. We did open up 5 new beds a couple weeks ago. So we were really kind of anticipating, because we would be the offload of the acute care, emergency department, ICUs. That would be kind of our role.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of personal, so that's what I do also during the day as a clinical RD. And then on the side, I have my private practice because I'm also a mentee of Body Kindness. And so happy to be a part of it and really focusing on helping those get through these times with intuitive eating and just healing your relationship with food in these increased times of stress.
And for the listeners, that's my secret on how I could book guests so quickly, because I'm like, I know healthcare workers. I think they'll say yes. So thank you guys so much. And I'll be sure to include the links to your work and your social channels and everything in the show notes so that folks can continue to connect with you and learn from you. And, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you're doing day in and day out, work that I could not do, I would be afraid to do, and most people would never do, putting yourself at great risk every day. I don't know how you do it, but thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's where our heart is, and just helping people and being able to be there for people during these times there are no words to describe what we do and how much it means to us. I'm speaking for a lot of healthcare providers, but I think that just in general, this is why we got into the jobs and the careers that we did, was to help people through humanity. And there is nothing that makes me more, I don't even want to say satisfied, but more just grateful that I get to be part of this for people and for their families and to help them through this stuff. That's kind of just what keeps me going in a career. And I'm lucky that I found a career that I'm able to do that for people.
Mm-hmm. I want to connect the dots, right, between Lara's story and experience, and then with you, the both of you as the healthcare workers. And so what I'm imagining this, so you're hearing, Lara talk about these like desperate measures and, miraculously somebody knew somebody, and she's at this point of like, but why are these people doing this? And how could I ever repay or say thank you? And like, I'm just so curious, because you were on listening to that whole dialogue in the beginning. I would love to know, I would love for you guys to respond to Lara directly, like about that, like answer her question. You're the healthcare workers. Like what does she need to know? And I know you both don't speak for all healthcare workers, but my guess is you have a sense of something that could provide some amount of comfort and clarity for Lara.
Yeah, I mean, I can, speaking for myself, I would have to say when I was listening to her story, first of all, that social media post just blew my mind. First of all, it gave me complete and utter hope in social media, the power of it and the goodness that can come out of it. Because I know right now it can be a little challenging to navigate the waters of everything on there. But that just blew my mind that she was able to connect with people like that. And then of all days, Easter Sunday. I mean, it's just like everything just came together. But it really hit home when she said, oh, it was a Sunday and it was Easter and all these people were so willing to do that. I mean, speaking from my own personal experience, I'm not on call. I'm a physician assistant. We have fellows. I work at an academic teaching center. So we have fellows and attendings and all these other doctors that take call. But when I have one of my patients that needs something, I will jump up at any second to help them with that. And that's just how, I don't know if we're just bred that way or, it is absolutely nothing to say that, you weren't bothering anybody or you weren't doing anything. It's like, we got to get this done. I mean, this is human life we're talking about here. This isn't, oh, that can wait till tomorrow. I mean, there's a lot of situations that can wait till tomorrow. That is not one of them. And this is something we can get going. I think people love that. They healthcare workers, they want to, step out of wherever they can to help people. I think that probably goes on to why we have healthcare worker burnout, because we ourselves as healthcare workers have got to draw those boundaries and make sure that we, are utilizing our resources, our own personal resources. But those are the times that we say, yes, this is where we need to help this person. And this is totally completely what I'm meant to do and to help. So although somebody, going back to what Lara was saying about how do I show gratitude and all of that, I mean, I love that people show us gratitude, but it's not ever anything that I'm expecting from anybody or to see anything, from somebody. It's, I don't know, it's something that's really kind of hard to explain, that by us helping a person and helping a family and getting families through these things, that's like our gratitude from them. We know they're thankful. And that's just really, it's a really special time. And I remember when I was in my interviews for PA school and they were like, why do you want to be a PA? And, and all of this. And one of them was that it's kind of an honor to be part of people's lives when their lives are so kind of at their most vulnerable times. And I think that majority of healthcare workers, that's where they're coming from, is that we're able to be part of that and can help people sort of in that way. So that's kind of what I wanted to say to Laura when she said all of that. How do I give gratitude? Every single person in a hospital feels, that's what we're there for. And it does nothing but makes us happy and really fills our spirit to help people like that. So.
And what are your thoughts, Katy?
Yes, I agree. Just to go off of that as well, I completely agree that I know every single person that works at my hospital is there because they truly are dedicated to their job. And there's no way for us to separate out the emotional connection with patients. You are there and you're doing a job, but you still are connected to every single patient just on a human level. And so I think it's also difficult for us during these times because we're trying to really be there for every patient and we're having to fill in the role of their family members that are usually there at bedside. And it's been really hard for us too, because we know how valuable it is to have, family members or spouses or whoever is really important to those patients. And so it's been difficult, because we could never fully fill in those roles. But just know that we really do take the extra time. And we have also been doing FaceTime with our patients. So we're really trying to make sure that every patient, speaks to a family member, or just even having a family member speak to a patient, maybe they're not conscious or something like that. But really to have that connection, because I completely agree with, how Laura's feeling of it really feels important. And I definitely think it really is important. And I also agree with Shannon on the burnout aspects of it, because we're trying really hard to be there, but we're having to kind of be there for everybody. And so I completely hear, if you're Laura not feeling, I wasn't able to speak to my mom, at the same time today, or I wasn't able to speak to her for a long time. No, it's not because we're not trying, our hardest to really provide that for everyone that we can and as smoothly as possible. But I think we're also trying to constantly pivot, because it is true, this is new to all of us. And, there's different guidelines constantly coming out. When the no visitors policy came about, we really had to quickly pivot to, okay, how do we provide contact for visitors? Are there going to be certain visitors that are allowed, or is it, a very restricted basis? So it was kind of, we were constantly pivoting and constantly trying to work things out, but in real time and, as quickly as possible, so that we could continue our care like we have been and have it be as beneficial for everyone as possible.
Right. And Rebecca, if I could just piggyback off of what Katy just said, you probably saw Evelyn Tripoli's post today about her dad and her feeling like, and I think I've explained this to many people, like my mom did have underlying health issues and I had accepted that, but never in my imagination would I have ever accepted her dying alone. Mm-hmm. And, in this post from a mentor of mine, when I became a certified intuitive eating counselor, her dad is in the hospital, not doing well. And one of the things I wanted to communicate back, which is exactly what Katy is saying, and kind of where, I think she hit home on where, when we talked last, I was feeling, I'm not alone. I have a community out there that have supported me and helped me get my mom the things she needed. And my mom's not alone. She's with people that really understand, and they're holding her hand and they're, softly touching her shoulder and saying, Bonnie, it's okay. So I think for me, and Katy really helped me get back in touch with that emotion. It's like none of us are alone in any of this, in this pandemic, in this crisis. And that's a really wonderful thing to know. And I'm never going to forget it,
Does anybody know the short definition of the word compassion?
No.
No.
We are not good mentees.
You're wonderful mentees. Compassion literally means to suffer together.
Yeah. Really?
Mm-hmm. Why do you think I titled the episode Compassion?
That's amazing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Yes, are we all suffering? Sure, but we are not alone.
Mm-hmm. What's I'll just say real quick, what's also interesting is that I think when we acknowledge that we are in a collective trauma, and it's absolutely hurting different people in different ways. There are people who have different resources and socioeconomic status, different health status, and yet it's a collective trauma. And I think it's like people finding each other, and also when we feel that drive to be a helper, that is a drive because we have compassion, right? I'm sure there's some sort of link between high compassion and healthcare workers that somebody can, identify to be true. And it's also a mechanism for post-traumatic growth, how we're going to get through it all and to be resilient is this, when we have that drive to help and we take action, we're practicing compassion for others. And, we're saying, I'm willing to suffer with you. And that helps both and all in resilience.
Absolutely.
What were you going to say, Katy?
That hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's the total summation of the entire everything that I think all of us are feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I agree. And I was just going to add on, I think stories and conversations like these are also just so important just to kind of get everyone else's perspective, because Laura, I really connected with your story on the other side of it, of just really remembering, how hard it would be to be at home and not knowing what was happening. And I really can see on the other side of going into work every day, and every patient we have family members at home wondering what's happening and what's going on. So I think it was really good for me to also hear your story, just to really remember that, and just remember that everyone is really just kind of trying to be in their own anxiety of the unknown and what's going on. And there's going to be times of heightened uncertainty, and just any way that we can all be there for each other. I agree.
Shannon and Katy, are you guys okay emotionally right now? Like, do you have like a body kindness practice that you're doing that's helping you weather the days? Like, do you feel okay? Or is there anything going on that you'd like to share?
For me, oh, wow, this has been so, it's been such a time of very much up and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody can probably relate to that. It's like one day you'll wake up and you'll be like, oh, okay, I have a lot of hope or whatever, good mood, whatever. And then the next day you can be like, oh man, where am I? Why is this a bad dream? I mean, when this all first started coming down, and I'm in infectious diseases, so I knew that this was not going to be something easy. And we had been kind of sort of preparing for this since sort of January, in the sense that we knew that there was a coronavirus out there, talking to our coronavirus experts. So you sort of had a time to prepare, but then it was just like, yeah, okay, we'll shut everything down for a couple of weeks and it'll be okay and all that. And then it's really morphed and evolved into this, what's the new normal going to look like? And so when you're taking, everything gets put at home. So you're homeschooling, like I have a son, an elementary age school son. So you're trying to homeschool, and then you're trying to, all of this stuff at work, we're trying to get telehealth up, and we got to still see our patients and do all of that. And so you are all over the place emotionally with this, because then you see human suffering. My very best friend lost her dad to COVID about 3 weeks ago, which was completely unexpected. And so trying to be there for her, trying to be there for my son, trying to be there for my husband, trying to be there for my family. I have family members who had it, so they were emailing me and questioning. I have, because of that, have tuned into body kindness. It was almost like a crash course. And it only, not that I wasn't doing it before, but it was just, what do I do? I mean, I'm not a writer, and I pulled up expressive writing in body kindness. I don't know how many times, like, Shannon, just let it all out, let those things go. For me, meditation has been huge. I know it's not something for everybody, but it's been something I have to calm my nerves. I mean, to the point where I was just like, I have nowhere else to turn. I have got to take care of myself. And yeah, there's been days, Easter Sunday, I did absolutely nothing. I mean, I felt like that was probably one of the darkest days. And I don't know why, but it was just a really, I don't know if the weather was bad or what was going on, but I literally had to be like, okay, I need to go get my mind off of this. And I have to go watch some really, my housewives TV or something. It's like so not involved in any of this. But what has come out of it so far for me is I'm starting to see resilience on my side and starting to really, really listen to myself emotionally, which I had not done before. And this puts so many things in perspective for me. So those are some of the things that I've been wrestling with over the past couple of weeks personally.
How are you doing, Katy?
I also have to agree. I think it's a constant moving target of how, if it's going to be good or feelings of just overwhelm. And it's been, for the most part, usually changing week by week. And then it kind of sometimes is day by day. I think I'm feeling a lot better lately. A few weeks ago was a really scary and tough time for me mentally, just because it was just there was so much uncertainty. So like I was saying before, our level of care is kind of the next step down from acute care hospitals. And since we specialize in ventilators and respiratory care, it kind of felt like we would possibly be the hub if there was, a surge, and we were just seeing everything that was going on in New York and other places in the US, here in California. And it was just a really scary time of trying to figure out what was going to happen, even the next day. And I was just religiously watching the news and all of Governor Gavin Newsom's updates on just trying to figure out if there was going to be a surge, if the shelter in place was working, was there going to be enough hospital beds? Was there going to be enough ventilators? What was going to be our role in all of this? And I think that just kind of feeling of impending doom was really getting to me. And I definitely had some stress breakdowns and just really just crying in my car after work, because it was just felt like so much. Because even just going into work, and right now we don't have any positive patients, but, coworkers were testing positive, and it just felt very, kind of at the doors, and, just that overwhelming feeling of not really knowing what was going to happen next. And so I think now that has eased because of how things have been playing out in California, and just kind of, knowing more of what our role will be. I think we're going to be helping a lot of the patients that are post positive and kind of coming to us from there. Exactly. And then it definitely was this back and forth of feeling like we've got this, we know how to do this. It's kind of, I want to say, this is not new for us in the sense of we get infectious diseases coming into our hospital all the time. We're weaning patients off of ventilators all the time. We know this, but at the same time, it's also very new and scary. And, my personal job, I'm a dietitian, so I don't even have to go into the room per se of, a respiratory therapist or a nurse. And so I think even for me, having it be scary, it was also, just trying to make sure that my coworkers were also okay. We're all just kind of trying to be in this together. So I guess that goes on to what my mental health, practices have been, is just trying to really remember that I'm going to need more support right now, from friends and family. And I really just think for me, it's been nice to have people just listen, just listen to, I'm really scared right now, or I had a really tough day, or, I don't know what's going to happen. Because I think a lot of this has been trying to put on a brave face, especially for, my parents or my grandparents, not wanting them to worry about me being, working in a hospital. So I think a lot of it has been being, more vulnerable of, hey, I am actually scared, but also just knowing we're just going to get through it day by day. and also just being really compassionate for yourself of what you need. And so it's been truly listening to myself and not telling myself shoulds, because I usually like to run to kind of help with my anxiety. And lately I just have not been able to run, and I've been really tired. And so I think that was really good listening to the previous podcast on the anxiety of, hey, right now you might be really high anxiety all the time. So you're just kind of burnt out. And so it's okay if you don't fall onto your usual practices, if you just need to take more time to really rest or do something quieter like yoga or meditation. Or yes, I have also been zoning out to, shows like The Bachelor or listening to like the Bachelor podcast or like Office Ladies podcast, or just something that is just feels a little bit more neutral right now, I guess. But that's kind of, I think, how I've been feeling and how I've been kind of getting through it, is just really remembering that some days it's okay just to simply exist, just to give yourself gold stars for getting up and brushing your teeth. And, if it's going into work or not going into work or whatever everyone's role is in this, it's okay to just be doing that.
That's so interesting. I'm reverting to old episodes of Glee, and like, so my kids are seeing some of them, and I'll just be sitting there and I start shouting, "Don't speak, I know just what you're saying," and in my horrible singing voice. But anyway, it's like that exact kind of thing, something where I know that there's going to be some totally inappropriate yet comedic writing and some awesome songs that you just want to belt to. It's so therapeutic. So I can totally relate to that.
The music for me is, I have one of my all-time favorite artists. I'm a country fan, so no, don't make fun of me there, but one of my all-time favorite artists, he actually does an Instagram live and a Facebook live every single day. And I'm just excited that he's on every single day, and he plays old stuff. And I get my old college friends together on FaceTime, and we belt out to a little bit of Pat Green, because we just like, it is so soothing for all of us. And like you said, to just belt it out and, and do all of that. And so maybe, another thing to add to this is just that, maybe I am kind of like taking some more time for myself than I usually do, because usually I'm in this productive mode, having to commute to work. Traffic right now is amazing, so it's really easy to get there. I don't have to worry about any of that. So I've actually backed off on podcasts, listening to those, but the music has been so huge for me. Even just coming down to the basement and just like turning on some good old 80s, Journey and Def Leppard and some, some of that just, whatever it is that people can find to just bring themselves back to a little bit, like it grounds you when you can find those things in your practice for, body kindness stuff.
Right. And even for me, Rebecca, like I happen to feel like this practices shift week by week based on what my needs are, based on what's going on. And, I somehow wound up hitting I feel like my 45-day rock bottom.
Yeah, Sunday when you texted me, or what day was that?
Exactly. I'm like, I'm not doing this podcast. I can't do it. We're done. And I call it jokingly to my husband my 45-day rock bottom. Hopefully it was my rock bottom. I wasn't sleeping well. I would wake up every night, so I think I was very tired. I usually don't get up out of bed. I got up out of bed. I was fortunate that my husband came down. And we spent an hour talking, but through talking with him, it made me like recenter on like, what are my true values? Like when this is all said and done, what do I want to remember? Right. And it was like, almost like, okay, like who gives a shit if the storage closet gets cleaned out? Right. Or like, why am I putting so much pressure on myself to keep the house so clean? Like, who really cares about that? Like, Laura, what do you really care about? And it's like, I care about making sure that my family is safe and is okay. And I care about, I wasn't even, I'll be honest, I wasn't even going out for like walks. I wasn't connecting with friends because I was putting all this pressure. And I was like, Laura, but that's not who you are. Who you are is like connection with humans. Who you are, like you value your family. Like stop doing the laundry, stop cleaning out storage rooms, stop thinking you have to get like update your website. Like focus on the things that really bring you like, and it just this week it's about getting reconnected to my values and what's important to me. And that is one of the practices of body kindness. I don't know if next week it's going to be meditation or the following week it's going to be like another practice, but and I think it can shift, right? And I think it's a matter of staying connected with yourself and thinking about the practices at the moment that are going to help you through this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, just a little like personal story about that is my mom actually has lost her job through this. And she's close to retirement age, but doesn't want to retire quite yet. And I've had to have that same conversation with her because she feels like she just needs to be productive. Like, what closet do I need to clean out today? And I need to clean the oven and I need to do this. And I finally, she called me up one day and was like, tell me I need to get off of my lazy butt. And I'm like, but do you want to get off your, I mean, do you want, what do you feel like today? And her and I have worked through that a lot because, I mean, I've already kind of gotten there myself through all of this without putting pressure on myself to be productive. And finally, one day she called me up and said that. And I said, Mom, you know what I'm going to tell you? I'm like, I'm the wrong person if you want to try to get off your butt. I was like, whatever you're feeling today, it's okay that you're not, she's like, I need to get out and I need to take a walk. I mean, why am I not taking a walk? And I said, because this is a collective trauma for everybody. And everybody, there's no right way to be in this. And just because you quote unquote have more time doesn't mean that you have to fill that up with something that's so like what you feel is so productive. And to kind of get back to, like you were saying, Laura, your values, and it can be a good time to reflect on those kinds of things, for what really kind of matters. And I do think that, one of my very best friends and I were FaceTiming the other night, and she's a huge traveler. She travels all over. And she's like, I'm just ready to get back at it, And we were kind of talking through all of that and what she's missing and all that. And it's a weird time, but I kind of, we talk through values of, she's like, I'm ready when this is over. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm ready to live my best life after this. So It is a great time for reflection on that too. I don't think everybody's at that point, but it's a great time for reflection. Great. What does matter?
I mean, and just as simple as this is, like, instead of folding laundry last night, I went into one of my son's rooms because my other son was in there. You guys are going to laugh. I'm going to share it. Rebecca, you don't have to censor this. We're in there laughing. I'm sitting on the chair, and my goofy son's like goofing around, and my other son's like rolling his eyes, and I'm rolling. We're like, and all of a sudden, I just passed gas. And I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like, oh, yeah, because you guys had me laughing so hard. I passed gas. And my other son's like, well, it's sure great that like your gas doesn't smell. But like we laughed, and that's what I remember. I want to remember being to laugh through this, if that makes any sense.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we started a tradition in our house. I think it's going to be a forever tradition where we're bringing 80s and 90s movies every night. We're watching one with our son and bringing some of our good old fashioned, adventures in babysitting.
I was just going to ask, did you play Adventure? I was going to ask about Adventures in Babysitting and Space Camp. Those were the two I was going to ask about.
I need to get him to watch Space Camp. I love Space Camp. I was trying to go for True Beverly Hills, but the boys aren't having that.
Max needs space now.
Yes.
Oh, geez.
So
Yes.
some we were talking about that. We're like, some really cool traditions need to come out of this, or some of the things, that we'll always remember. I mean, we'll always remember trying to help Bryson with his poetry. I mean, of all things right now that we're doing in homeschooling, poetry, it's just not our thing. I mean,
Is he in first grade too?
No, he's in fourth.
Oh, okay. Wow, this must be, because Audrey's in poetry too. And I was like, she just wrote a poem a different day about an animal. Frog, hippity hop, frogs like to hop, blah, blah. I'm like, good enough. Yeah, but the same thing. I'm kind of like poetry, like, poems and haikus. So anyway, I'm sure it's good, creative, expressive writing, but it's like, and another stuffed animal to write about today is.
Right. We write about football, and the Seattle Seahawks and football.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really awesome conversation. And I did want to give at least a minute or two to see. We know that there are people who want to open up their communities and want to put an end to the suffering that is happening. And there is impatience, right? And there is some misinformation happening in the news. And I think a very human response to all this, it's, that there's an endurance aspect of it where patience is waning, where we overconsume the news. And, basically what I'm trying to bring up is that there is also this point to where there can be, big emotions, anger, frustration, confusion, this suffering that we want to acknowledge that exists. And there has been situations where healthcare workers are not being believed or trusted, or that I got to imagine hurts in some way. So I just don't know, like, if we could think of what do we want to say to listeners that might hold some space for the depths of the suffering that could be happening right now, and say yes. And right, are there things that from the healthcare workers perspective that you would want listeners to also make space for and hold as we continue through quarantine?
Well, that's a great question. And that's one of the things for me that's been really challenging. I understand and I see all of the things. I'm in Denver, so yesterday we had a protest, and there's a very poignant picture that is probably making the waves of social media, where a nurse from one of our local hospitals, two nurses actually, stood out in the intersection, not to block traffic, but they were just out there in the red light cycle. And and it was kind of this, I don't even want to call it a battle, but it was the healthcare worker versus the person who wants to open up, everything.
It was a protest and a counter protest, basically, right?
Yeah. It's an amazing picture. Anyways, I just want to say that this is a complex situation. And from a healthcare worker standpoint, I have never met a person in healthcare who isn't truly there for helping people. Unfortunately, we can't always control what the news says. There's both sides of the media saying different things. I wish that, we could have more of a voice as healthcare, but really look at your sources, and see where everything is, and really check those, because there's not people in healthcare that are trying to make this worse. Nobody wants the economy to tank. Nobody wants people to die. But I want everybody to remember that this is not a black and white situation. The numbers are the numbers, but the numbers say different things. You can't compare, apples to oranges in certain situations. So I really think it's important to understand where your sources are coming from, and know that from the heart, and I can probably speak for all healthcare workers, that nobody's doing this to, I know that the human suffering is unimaginable on all fronts, economically, being quarantined in your house, the mental health, the people who are non-essential workers, who are essential workers everywhere. I just want to say from a healthcare worker standpoint that we all are in this to make the suffering less, but we're not there. Nothing's being made up, and we're not doing it to hurt anybody. We're doing it to make sure that people are safe to the best of our ability. And we really are truly, every single one of us in this together. So that's really what I want to say from our standpoint.
Thank you. Katy, do you have anything that you would want to add to that by chance?
Yeah, I think Shannon said it really well, that it's not a black and white situation, and this is really complex. And so I'm just trying to do my part in it of, going into work and being the healthcare side of it. But I do understand, there's societal pressures, there's economic pressures, there's all of these different aspects of it. But I really think to focus on, I know politically as a country, we're very divided right now, and there's a lot going on that front, but is to be as united as possible. And like Shannon said, just really look at your sources, look at where you're getting this information from, and if possible, just kind of focus on maybe one news source, or just know that we're going to be constantly learning new information. And so I know a lot of news sources, try to speculate or just try to kind of predict the future as much as possible. And sometimes that can kind of heighten anxiety because it's just so unknown, or there's just 10 different news articles saying 10 different things. And so if you can just kind of focus on, who do you look to for leadership, whether that's your governor or your local mayor, or who is kind of someone that you can look to, because that has been really helping me just to kind of really focus on how I intake my news. But also, I think in that, you need to be open to different perspectives. So I think it's really easy for us to kind of put each other into groups right now of, me living in San Francisco, there's a lot of my friends that work from home. And then there's other of my friends that don't have jobs right now. So we're all kind of struggling in a different way. And so I think really looking at how just the fact that we are all having our unique struggles with this, instead of saying, well, at least you have a job, or at least you get to go outside and not be stuck at home. I think there's just so many ways to divide us. And so really focusing more on our similarities, or that we're all collectively just trying to get through this as best we can. And, isolation doesn't need to mean social isolation. That's been going around. And I think that's a really good point. How can you connect more with people? How can you, FaceTime your friends more often than you maybe would before, or family, or whoever you need to reach out to? I think as much connection as possible, and kind of maybe changing how that connection looks right now, because we can't connect in the ways that we are used to doing, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it at all. And so I think that's just been really important for me to remember all the time.
Yeah, that's really good insight. Anything else that you wanted to say?
I just wanted to add on to that. What's something that's really important is to remember what everybody's going through, no matter what their situation, is completely valid. Mm-hmm. One person, like Katy kind of hit upon it, one person losing their job versus a person losing, a family member even, doesn't mean, because you're upset losing your job, doesn't mean that the person who, you don't have to think, well, at least I didn't lose a family member. I mean, it's all valid, mm-hmm. no matter what way, and you can have compassion and sympathy for that, but you're going through your thing too. And, in my opinion, you can't compare, my situation's not as bad as that person's or whatever. We're all going through, everybody's life has been disheveled in some sort of way. And so I really want people to remember that no matter what you're feeling, what you're going through, your story is valid too. Mm-hmm. And, there's not there's not a right or wrong way to be doing any of this.
Yeah. And when I heard both of you talk, it's the word that kept coming to my mind over and again was trust, trust, trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's even a privilege in being able to trust, but, you know, in reading the definition, the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. And I think that when you talked about that picture, and I'll definitely include that in the show notes, I saw that my husband covered protests in Annapolis this weekend, and the security guards had to get enacted to protect him and his camera because there was a situation. He's fine. And the security guards had to get involved and the police had to get involved, but everybody's fine. But it's like, I think that, you know, like when we talked about everything that happened, we have empathy and understand the feelings that show up and how things can get escalated. And I think the whole point of this conversation and having compassion, to suffer together, to be able to express gratitude even through difficult times. And so, you know, I think specifically between the link between there's health and humanity, you know, and with coronavirus, COVID-19 coming, you know, in America, that there is a global economic impact, you know. And so if we can hold kind of both truths there and see a collective suffering, and at the same time, you look at this picture and see the nurse as a human, see the protester as a human, and that there are needs and desires and feelings and emotions, and that there's a validity to all of it. And at the same time, the way that we are going to get through is through compassion and patience and enduring hardship, whether that's the hardship of getting up and walking into your hospital, which is 100% COVID, which I have DC healthcare workers where that is their job. And, you know, the strength that takes, right? / waking up and seeing the cupboards dwindle down and running out of money, if not run out. You know, how do you get access at a food bank? You know, having a mother in a hospital where you can't hold her hand and her uncertainty is a day-to-day. I think that to like pause and have this big open space, you know, like we can maybe all say it sucks to be here right now. Right? That's a very caregiver compassionate thing to say. And I think, and at the same time, you know, with respect to how we can say that and maybe think about, well, what is the next meaningful action that I can take? And I think in like sort of to better connect to the healthcare workers, it is more of a sense of this trust that there are people in medicine who care very deeply and are putting their lives on the line to try to protect as many people as possible and to try to get communities and states open as quickly as possible. I don't know if there's an ask to, because I know Shannon, you posted about this too, right? But it's like, you talk about consider the source, like literally rethink about sharing something, like ask first, is this going to help me and other people that I care about? Or is this a 2-second share that's just letting me get some anger out? Because on the other side of that is somebody who's a nurse putting her life on the line or his life on the line, walking into a COVID situation. And that hurts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in our planned 30 to 45 minute conversation, my daughter's piano lesson is going to wait. But it has been so awesome. It is exactly what I had hoped, to be able to connect Lara's experience and to get to hear from you two as well, and just commiserate and share some real life experience. And I'm sure the listeners will take away something helpful. Can you each share like a social media handle or website or whatnot? I know I've got bios and everything, so guys, please check out the show notes. But just to wrap up, can you each share? So we'll go Lara, Shannon, Katy, share a way people can get in touch with you.
Sure. People can get in touch with me at my website at Lara, that's Lara, Loverro, Loverro.com, or they can find me on Instagram at Lara Loverro.
And then my website is lifestylenutritionrd.com. And I'm at the same handle on Instagram. That's the place that I'm most active. So again, it's just Lifestyle Nutrition RD.
And my website is katygaston.com. So that's KatyGaston. And then my handle on Instagram is KatyG_RD. And I am also more active on my Instagram. So I'm available through, comments or DMs or anything like that.
Thank you all so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
And that's our show. The podcast is made possible with support from listeners. Please donate to help offset production costs at gofundme.com/bodykindness. And please rate and review the show when you have a moment. It really matters. Let's keep the conversations going on Facebook. Search Body Kindness and request to join the group for Body Kindness readers and listeners. Have a question for us to answer on a future episode? Visit bodykindnessbook.com/question. Body Kindness books and audiobooks are available wherever books are sold. To request a signed print copy, visit bodykindnessbook.com/order. For other questions about this podcast, please email info@bodykindnessbook.com.